Have you ever felt like your finances were spiraling out of control? Like no matter how hard you work, you're always just one paycheck away from disaster? If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. Many of us live in a cycle of financial instability, feeling trapped by debt, poor habits, and the constant pressure to keep up with others. But what if I told you there's a way out? A path to financial freedom rooted in ancient wisdom. Today, we're diving into how Stoic philosophy can help you break free from paycheck to paycheck living. This isn't about quick fixes or get-rich-quick schemes. It's about real, lasting change, building an iron mind, mastering your emotions, and making powerful choices that reshape your financial destiny. If you're ready to learn how to transform your life, stick with me to the end. We'll uncover lessons that could change everything. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Stoic Narratives Official for more life-changing insights. Living beyond your means. Let's start with a truth that might sting a little. Most of us, at some point, have lived beyond our means. It's easy to fall into, isn't it? There's that subtle pressure, friends upgrading their cars, neighbors renovating their homes, or social media making you feel like you need to buy that gadget, wear those designer clothes, or take that luxury vacation just to fit in. But here's the catch. Living beyond your means is like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in it. No matter how much you pour in, it's never enough. Let me tell you a story about John. John is in his early 40s, a hard-working guy with a good job, but he always felt like he was running on empty. He drove a luxury car he couldn't truly afford, had a house filled with things he didn't need, and used credit cards to pay for it all. On the surface, he looked successful, but behind the scenes, he was drowning. He was living paycheck to paycheck, struggling to keep up, and constantly worried about the next unexpected expense. One night, his car broke down, and he didn't even have the cash to fix it. That was his wake-up call. He realized he wasn't living for himself. He was living for the opinions of others. And worse, he had built a life where debt controlled him, not the other way around. Does this sound familiar? Maybe you're not driving a luxury car, but think about it. Are you spending money just to impress people who might not even care? This is where Stoic philosophy comes in. The Stoics teach us to separate what we want from what we need. Epictetus said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." Let that sink in for a moment. True wealth isn't about how much you have. It's about how little you need to feel fulfilled. John began to rethink his relationship with money. He asked himself tough questions. What do I truly need? Why am I spending on things that don't bring me lasting joy? It wasn't easy, but he started small. He sold the luxury car and replaced it with a reliable used vehicle. He stopped upgrading his phone every year and canceled subscriptions he barely used. Instead of dining out 4 nights a week, he cooked at home, experimenting with simple meals. And guess what? He didn't feel deprived. In fact, he felt freer than he had in years. You see, living beyond your means isn't just a financial issue, it's emotional. Often we overspend to fill a void, insecurity, boredom, or the need to keep up appearances. But as the Stoics remind us, none of those things can bring true contentment. Instead, we need to focus on what's within our control, our choices, our habits, and our mindset. John also realized that chasing material things was stealing something far more valuable than money: his peace of mind. Every unnecessary expense was like a chain pulling him further into financial stress. So he began practicing gratitude. Every morning, he wrote down 3 things he was thankful for. And over time, he noticed something incredible. The more he appreciated what he already had, the less he felt the need to chase after more. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, but I don't want to live like a monk. I want to enjoy life. And you should. Stoicism isn't about depriving yourself. It's about aligning your spending with your values. What truly matters to you? Is it experiences with loved ones, building memories, or is it just keeping up with trends that change every year? When you start living for yourself, not for others, your finances will naturally fall into balance. For John, this shift didn't happen overnight, but the results were worth it. Within a year, he had saved enough for an emergency fund, a cushion that brought him immense peace. He no longer felt stressed when unexpected expenses came up. More importantly, he felt like he was finally in control of his life. And that's what living within your means really offers: control, freedom, and the ability to focus on what truly matters. So let me ask you this. What's one expense you could cut today? Maybe it's that daily coffee run or the subscription you never use. Start small. Every dollar you save is a step toward freedom. And remember, this isn't about punishment. It's about empowerment. When you choose to live within your means, you're choosing a life where you control your money, not the other way around. Living within your means isn't just a financial strategy, it's a mindset shift, a daily practice of asking yourself what truly adds value to your life. The Stoics knew this thousands of years ago, and it's as relevant today as ever. Choose simplicity, choose peace, and in doing so, choose a life that's truly yours. Ignoring debt and lacking financial discipline. Debt is one of the heaviest burdens we carry, yet so many of us choose to ignore it, pretending it will somehow disappear if we just don't look at it. But here's the truth. Debt doesn't vanish, it grows. It sits in the background, silently accumulating interest, until one day it feels like a mountain too steep to climb. John, the man whose story we've been following, knew this struggle all too well. Debt was a shadow over his life, something he avoided until it became impossible to ignore. For years, John made only the minimum payments on his credit cards and carried multiple loans: student debt, car loans, and even a personal loan he had taken out to cover an emergency. Every month, a large chunk of his income went straight to interest, yet his principal balances barely budged. He would tell himself, "I'm managing it," but deep down, he knew he wasn't. He was stuck in a cycle, working hard every day, not for himself, but for his creditors. It was exhausting and demoralizing. One night, while reviewing his finances, the reality hit him. He realized he wasn't just paying off debt. He was paying for his past mistakes, for moments when he had chosen immediate gratification over long-term security. He felt like he was trapped in a prison of his own making. But as the Stoics teach, the first step toward freedom is acknowledging the chains that bind you. Seneca once said, "He who is brave is free." And for John, bravery meant facing his debt head-on. The next morning, John took action. He listed every debt he owed, including the interest rates and minimum payments. Seeing it all laid out was painful, but it was also empowering. As the Stoics remind us, clarity is the first step toward wisdom. By understanding the full scope of his situation, he could begin to take control. He adopted a simple strategy, the debt snowball method. He started by paying off his smallest debt first, gaining momentum and confidence as he eliminated each balance. At the same time, he redirected every extra penny he could toward his next target. This wasn't easy. To make it work, John had to cut back even more on his spending. He canceled unused subscriptions, sold items he no longer needed, and found ways to generate extra income on the side. It wasn't glamorous, but it was effective. With every payment, he felt a little lighter, a little freer. Slowly but surely, the mountain of debt that had once seemed insurmountable began to shrink. But this journey wasn't just about the numbers. It was about discipline, a lesson central to Stoic philosophy. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." John realized that debt wasn't just a financial issue, it was a mental one. It required him to change how he thought about money and his own impulses. Instead of avoiding discomfort, he learned to face it. Instead of seeking quick fixes, he embraced the slow, steady process of rebuilding. One of the biggest lessons John learned was the importance of separating needs from wants. Every time he was tempted to make a purchase, he would pause and ask himself, will this bring lasting value, or is it just another distraction? That simple question became a guiding principle in his life, helping him avoid falling back into old habits. Over time, he realized that many of the things he thought he needed were really just wants disguised by social pressure or fleeting emotions. As John worked through his debt, something remarkable happened. He began to feel a sense of control he hadn't experienced in years. Each payment wasn't just a financial transaction, it was an act of reclaiming his life. He wasn't working for his debt anymore, he was working for his future. And that sense of progress, no matter how small, gave him the strength to keep going. Debt is a monster, but like all monsters, it becomes less frightening when you face it. For John, tackling his debt wasn't just about numbers on a page. It was about regaining his freedom, his peace of mind, and his ability to focus on what truly mattered. As the Stoics teach, it's not the obstacles themselves that define us, but how we choose to respond to them. And John chose to respond with courage, discipline, and a commitment to change. Now I'll ask you this: how often do you check your debts? Have you listed them out, including the interest rates and balances? If not, today is the perfect day to start. Facing your debt may feel uncomfortable, but it's the first step toward breaking free. Remember, financial freedom isn't just about having more money. It's about having fewer worries, fewer regrets, and the ability to live a life that aligns with your values. And that, my friend, is worth every sacrifice. Neglecting investments and self-improvement. Debt is a heavy burden to lift, but once John began chipping away at it, he realized there was another trap holding him back: his failure to invest in both his future and himself. While tackling debt was about fixing past mistakes, neglecting investments and self-improvement meant missing out on future opportunities. It was like patching a sinking boat, but never setting a course to reach a better shore. For years, John had avoided investing because he thought it wasn't for people like him. He believed the world of stocks, bonds, and portfolios was reserved for the wealthy or the highly educated. So, his savings sat in a regular bank account, barely growing and quietly losing value to inflation. Every year, the same amount of money could buy him less. Yet he told himself it was safe. He thought inaction was better than risking even a small loss. But the Stoics remind us that avoiding risk is often the riskiest move of all. Seneca said, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare, but because we do not dare that they are difficult." John realized his inaction stemmed from fear. Fear of the unknown and fear of failure. The same fear that had kept him stuck in debt was now holding him back from building wealth. He decided it was time to act. He started small, opening an investment account with just a few $100s. A friend had explained the power of compound interest, and it was a revelation. John began to see his money not as something static, but as something that could grow if given the right environment. He educated himself on simple strategies like investing in low-cost index funds and learned to ignore the noise of daily market fluctuations. He didn't need to become an expert overnight. He just needed to start. At the same time, John realized he had been neglecting an even more important investment: himself. For years, he had put off reading books, taking courses, or learning new skills. He told himself he didn't have the time or the money, but the truth was, he didn't prioritize it. And yet, every time he looked at someone achieving success, he envied their knowledge, their adaptability, and their confidence, traits they had built through deliberate self-improvement. The Stoics often spoke of the importance of lifelong learning. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have to assemble your life yourself, action by action." John began to see that self-improvement wasn't an expense, it was the most valuable investment he could make. He picked up books on personal development and financial literacy. He enrolled in a few affordable online courses to sharpen his skills in his profession. Slowly but surely, he noticed changes, not just in his career, but in how he approached life. Self-investment didn't just open doors for John professionally. It also strengthened his mindset. The discipline he gained from studying spilled over into other areas of his life. He became more confident in making decisions, more resilient when facing setbacks, and more open to opportunities he might have once dismissed. This wasn't just about making more money. It was about becoming the kind of person who could handle success when it came. Investing in yourself and your future isn't about grand gestures or quick wins. It's about consistency. Every small step, every book, every saved dollar, every new skill compounds over time, just like financial investments. John learned to think long-term, focusing less on immediate gratification and more on building something sustainable. And that, as the Stoics teach, is where true fulfillment lies. Not in chasing fleeting pleasures, but in creating lasting value. Now, let me ask you, what's one way you could invest in yourself today? Maybe it's setting aside $50 to start an investment account. Maybe it's signing up for that course you've been putting off, or even just reading a single chapter of a book. Remember, the greatest obstacle to growth isn't the lack of resources. It's the lack of action. The Stoics believed in acting with purpose, and there's no better purpose than building a better future for yourself. John's journey reminds us that financial freedom isn't just about paying off debts or cutting costs. It's about moving forward, creating opportunities, and becoming the best version of yourself. Don't let fear or doubt hold you back. Start today, even if it's small. Your future self will thank you. The power of choice and avoiding emotional traps. John's journey of financial recovery wasn't just about numbers or strategies. It was about choices. Every day, we make decisions that shape our future, often without realizing their weight. The Stoics teach us that life is not about what happens to us, but how we respond. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." For John, embracing this principle was the turning point in reclaiming control over his life. One of the hardest lessons he learned was recognizing how emotions had influenced his financial decisions. Like many of us, John often let feelings guide his spending. When he was stressed, he bought things he didn't need, telling himself it was a reward for his hard work. When he felt insecure, he spent to impressing others, thinking that external validation would make him feel whole. But the satisfaction was always fleeting, and the financial consequences lingered. The Stoics called this the tyranny of emotions. They believed that while emotions are natural, they must not govern our actions. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." For John, this meant learning to pause and reflect before making decisions, especially those tied to his finances. He began practicing what he called the 24-hour rule. Whenever he felt the urge to make a significant purchase, he would wait a full day before acting. This simple habit allowed his initial emotions, excitement, fear, or even envy, to subside, giving him clarity. More often than not, he realized he didn't truly need or even want the item after all. Instead of chasing instant gratification, he started asking himself deeper questions. Will this add real value to my life? Is this purchase aligned with my goals? But avoiding emotional traps wasn't just about spending. It was also about letting go of comparisons. Social media had been a constant source of pressure for John. He saw friends buying new cars, taking extravagant vacations, or upgrading their homes. Each post felt like a reminder of what he didn't have. It created a cycle of envy that pushed him to spend more, even when he couldn't afford it. The Stoics warned against this kind of comparison. Seneca wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more. That is poor." John realized that constantly measuring his life against others was robbing him of contentment. He began limiting his time on social media and focusing instead on his own progress. He started celebrating small victories, like paying off a credit card or adding to his savings. Each step forward, no matter how small, reminded him that his journey was his own. Another emotional trap John worked to overcome was the fear of failure. For years, he had avoided taking risks, whether it was investing, changing jobs, or pursuing new opportunities. He told himself it was safer to stay where he was, but deep down, he knew he was holding himself back. The Stoics taught that fear often stems from overestimating risks and underestimating our ability to adapt. Marcus Aurelius advised, "You have endured worse things than this." With this mindset, John began taking calculated risks. He invested a small amount in the stock market, not to chase quick profits, but to learn and grow. He started networking and exploring career options, even though it meant stepping out of his comfort zone. Each action, though intimidating at first, built his confidence. Over time, he realized that failure wasn't something to fear. It was a teacher. The power of choice, as the Stoics remind us, is one of the greatest tools we have. Every decision, no matter how small, is an opportunity to align our actions with our values. For John, this meant choosing discipline over impulse, gratitude over envy, and courage over fear. It wasn't always easy, but the rewards were undeniable. His finances improved, but more importantly, he found a sense of peace and purpose. So let me ask you, how often do you pause to reflect on the choices you make each day? Are your decisions driven by emotion or guided by reason? The Stoics believe that true freedom comes not from having more, but from mastering yourself. Start today. The next time you face a decision, big or small, take a moment to breathe, reflect, and choose wisely. You might be surprised at how much power you already hold. Comparing yourself to others. Comparing yourself to others is a habit many of us fall into, often without even realizing it. It's subtle at first. A glance at someone's new car, a photo of their vacation, or a post about their latest achievement. But soon it becomes a constant voice in your head. Why am I not there yet? Why don't I have that? What am I doing wrong? John knew this voice all too well. For years it dictated his life, leaving him feeling inadequate and pushing him into financial decisions that only deepened his struggles. Social media was one of the biggest culprits. John would scroll through his feed and see his peers seemingly thriving, buying homes, starting businesses, or upgrading to the latest gadgets. It didn't matter if he was making progress in his own life. The moment he compared himself to someone else, all his accomplishments felt small. He started spending money he didn't have, not because he needed those things, but because he thought they would make him feel enough. But the truth is, no purchase can fill the void created by constant comparison. The Stoics warned against this exact trap. Epictetus said, "How long are you going to wait before you demand the best for yourself?" Notice he didn't say the best compared to others. The Stoics believed that our only competition is with ourselves. Comparing your life to someone else's is like running a race where you don't even know the finish line. You're chasing an illusion, a constantly moving target that only leaves you exhausted and unfulfilled. John came to this realization one evening while reflecting on his financial struggles. He asked himself, "Who am I really trying to impress?" The answer wasn't flattering. Much of his spending had been driven by a desire to keep up with others, to project an image of success, rather than focus on what truly mattered to him. That night, he decided to stop running someone else's race and start living for himself. The first step John took was redefining success. Instead of measuring his life against others, he began setting personal goals. He wrote down what truly mattered to him: financial stability, more time with his family, and the freedom to pursue hobbies he loved. These goals had nothing to do with flashy cars or exotic vacations. They were about creating a life that felt fulfilling to him, not anyone else. John also started practicing gratitude. Each morning, he took a few minutes to reflect on the things he already had: a roof over his head, a supportive family, and his health. Gratitude shifted his perspective, helping him see that he wasn't lacking. In fact, he had more than enough to build a meaningful life. The Stoics often emphasized this practice, with Marcus Aurelius writing, "Do not indulge in dreams of having what you don't have. Rather, think of the blessings you do possess and be thankful." Another step John took was limiting his exposure to triggers. Social media, while a great tool, has become a source of unnecessary pressure. He didn't quit it entirely, but he started being intentional about how he used it. He unfollowed accounts that made him feel inadequate and followed those that inspired him to grow. He also set boundaries, like avoiding his phone in the morning or before bed, so he could start and end his day on his own terms. Over time, these changes made a profound difference. John felt lighter, freer. He wasn't constantly comparing his progress to others. Instead, he celebrated his own milestones, no matter how small. Paying off a credit card, building an emergency fund, or simply sticking to his budget for a month became victories worth acknowledging. Each step forward brought him closer to the life he truly wanted, not the one society told him he should have. But perhaps the most important lesson John learned was this: comparing yourself to others is not only unproductive, it's unfair. You don't see the full picture of someone else's life. They might have the car, the house, or the job, but you don't know their struggles, sacrifices, or insecurities. As the Stoics taught, the only life you can control is your own. Focusing on that is not just liberating, it's empowering. So let me ask you, how often do you compare your journey to someone else's? And how does it make you feel? If it leaves you frustrated or unmotivated, it's time to stop. Instead, take a moment to reflect on what truly matters to you. Define your own success, celebrate your progress. And most importantly, remember this: you're running your race, and that's the only race that matters. As we wrap up today's journey, let's reflect on the power of choice. Every decision you make, whether it's tackling debt, building a budget, or resisting the urge to compare yourself to others shapes your financial destiny. The Stoics teach us that while we cannot control everything, we can control how we respond. And that response, no matter how small, can lead to profound change. Remember, financial freedom isn't about perfection. It's about progress. It's not about how fast you achieve your goals, but how steadily you move toward them. By embracing Stoic principles, you can master your emotions, take control of your money, and create a life that aligns with your values. If today's video resonated with you, give it a like and subscribe to Stoic Narratives Official for more insights on mastering your mind and life. Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your story. Until next time, keep moving forward, one choice at a time.